Thank you for everything, son.
No, thank you. This means so much.
Please take this.
I will treasure it.
The entire Camp Nou held its breath. 87,000 people frozen in their seats, staring at the center circle of the field. Ronaldinho, the most gifted soccer player alive, was sitting down on the grass in the middle of a live official match, not resting, not cramping, not protesting a call. He was slowly, deliberately unlacing his boots one at a time. But that was not even the most shocking part. When he stood back up, he tucked those boots under his arm and began walking, barefoot across the green grass, toward the sideline bench. Not toward the locker room, not toward the medical staff, toward one specific person sitting quietly in the dugout area. A small, 83-year-old woman wrapped in a Barcelona scarf so worn and faded that the blue and red had nearly blurred into the same color. She had no idea what was happening. She had no idea that 87,000 people were watching her. And she had absolutely no idea that in the next 3 minutes, a soccer legend was going to kneel in front of her and change both of their lives forever. To understand why Ronaldinho took off his boots that night, you have to go back exactly 72 hours earlier. 3 days before the match, Ronaldinho arrived at the club's training facility before sunrise. The groundskeepers were already moving across the field with their equipment, the sprinklers running their quiet morning cycles over the grass. Ronaldinho liked mornings like this. The stadium empty, the city still asleep, just him and the sound of the field waking up. He was walking toward the locker room when something stopped him. A sound he wasn't expecting. A voice, soft and thin, barely carrying across the open air. Someone was singing. He followed the melody up into the auxiliary bleachers, the small practice stands where maintenance workers sometimes took their breaks. And there, sitting alone in the third row of an otherwise completely empty section of seats, was an elderly woman. She must have been well into her 80s. She wore a worn Barcelona scarf that looked like it had been through every rain and every winter the city had thrown at it for decades. Her eyes were closed, and she was singing the club's anthem from memory, without hesitation, every word perfectly in place. Ronaldinho sat down 2 rows below her and waited. He didn't want to interrupt. When she finished, she opened her eyes and looked at him with absolutely no surprise. Not the wide eyes of a fan seeing her idol, just a calm, quiet recognition. A small smile, like she had been expecting someone to come sit near her eventually. "My name is Ronaldo," he said, though he already knew it wasn't necessary. "I know," she replied. "I have watched you play 143 times. Ronaldinho frowned. "That is impossible. I haven't played that many matches for the club yet." She shook her head slowly. "I am not talking only about your matches. I am talking about the training sessions too. The early mornings when you stayed behind to practice free kicks after everyone else had gone home. I have seen those too." He stared at her. "How is that possible?" She reached into the pocket of her coat. "My husband worked here for 41 years, she said. "He was a groundskeeper. He took care of this field the way other men take care of their children. He died 3 months ago." Ronaldinho looked down at the grass below them. "I am so sorry," Hani said. She pulled something from her pocket and held it carefully in both hands. It was a ticket stub, old and yellow, the ink barely legible, the edges soft from being handled so many times. "From 1974, she said. The first time I ever came to this stadium, I was 23 years old. My husband brought me here on our very first date. He told me that if I ever had to choose between him and this stadium, I should choose the stadium, because he would always be here, taking care of the grass. Ronaldinho took the ticket stub from her gently, holding it the way you hold something you know cannot be replaced. Her name was Maria Puig de Martinez. And she told him that since her husband Josep had died, she came to the training facility every single morning. She sat in those same seats, closed her eyes, and listened. She could still hear the sound of his lawnmower moving across the field. She could still smell the fresh cut grass. She could still feel him there, in the air around the stadium, tending to something he had loved his entire life. Ronaldinho could not stop thinking about Maria for the next 2 days. He thought about Josep Martinez, a man who had given 41 years of his life to keeping a field green so that other men could run on it and become legends. A man who had never scored a goal, never lifted a trophy, never had his name announced over a public address system to the roar of a crowd. A man whose entire career had happened at 5 in the morning, alone, in the quiet before anyone else arrived. On Friday night, Ronaldinho called the club's director of operations. He explained everything he knew about Maria and Josep. He made a specific request. The director hesitated for a moment. What Ronaldinho was asking for was unusual, and the logistics were complicated. But something in the way Ronaldinho spoke made it impossible to say no. "Fine," the director said. "We will do what you are asking." On the morning of the match, Ronaldinho walked into the training facility 3 hours before kickoff. Maria was already there, sitting in the exact same seat, same scarf. Eyes closed, he sat beside her this time. She opened her eyes and smiled. "You came back," she said. "I want you to come to the match tonight," he told her. She shook her head. "My doctors have told me my heart is too weak. Any strong emotion could be dangerous. They have made that very clear." Ronaldinho looked at her for a moment. "Then I promise I will not score any goals," he said. "So you will have nothing to get excited about." Maria laughed. It was the first time she had laughed since Josep died. "You are ridiculous," she told him. "My husband was right about you. He always said you played soccer like it was a party, not a war." She came to the match. It took considerable planning. The club's medical team cleared it after a careful evaluation. A team of 3 doctors was assigned to monitor her vital signs throughout the entire game. An ambulance would be stationed outside the stadium for the duration of the match, ready to move at a moment's notice. And Maria and her grandson, Carlos, the only one of her grandchildren who had inherited Josep's love for the club, would be seated directly on the sideline bench next to the coaching staff at field level, exactly where Josep used to walk every single day. When they led Maria through the tunnel to reach the bench, she stopped walking. She put one hand against the concrete wall and stood completely still. Her eyes filled with tears. "Josep passed through here every morning," she whispered. "Every single day for 41 years, he walked through this tunnel to get to the field." The director nodded and said nothing. There was nothing to say. When she stepped out of the tunnel and saw the field for the first time from field level, she reached out and took her grandson Carlos by the arm. He put his hand over hers. The medical team stayed close, and the club wrapped a blanket around her legs as she settled into the seat on the bench. The match began. Barcelona versus Sevilla, a critical contest with significant implications for the standings. 87,000 voices rose up together, and the stadium became everything it always was on match nights. Loud and enormous and electric and beautiful. Maria sat perfectly still on the bench with the blanket over her lap and her eyes fixed on the field, watching the players move in patterns she recognized from years of watching her husband's handiwork get played on. Ronaldinho was extraordinary from the opening whistle, every touch precise, every movement fluid. That smile, the one that made the whole world feel like soccer, was the easiest thing anyone had ever done. Was on his face from the first minute. He played like a man who had been given a gift he did not fully deserve and was determined to honor it with everything he had. The score stayed at 0-0 through the first hour of the match. Then, in the 78th minute, something changed. Ronaldinho received the ball near midfield with open space ahead of him. He had a clear path forward. Two teammates were making runs into the box. The angle was good, and the moment was exactly right for the kind of individual run that had made him the most celebrated player in the world. He took one touch, set his weight, and then stopped. The ball rolled forward a few yards without him. A Sevilla defender scooped it up, confused. The referee blew his whistle, equally confused, awarding a foul that hadn't happened because he didn't know what else to do. The crowd murmured. Commentators went silent, trying to understand what they were seeing. Ronaldinho was not looking at the ball. He was not looking at his teammates or the goal or the opposing defenders. He was looking at the bench, at Maria. He had seen the team doctor lean forward in his chair. He had seen the medic place 2 fingers against her wrist. He had seen Carlos turn away from the field to look at his grandmother, and he had seen Maria press her hand to her chest. He walked off the field, not jogged, not ran, walked, calmly, directly, with absolute purpose, toward the sideline. The referee shouted at his back. The Barcelona coaching staff was on their feet. Players from both teams stood in the center circle watching without moving, because whatever this was, it was something no one had trained for, and no one had a protocol to handle. Ronaldinho reached the bench. He crouched down in front of Maria. The doctor looked up and said quietly, "She is okay. Just the emotion. Her heart is holding." Maria opened her eyes and found Ronaldinho's face right in front of her. What are you doing here?" she asked. "Go back to the field. The match is still going." He shook his head. "I cannot keep playing without knowing that you are all right." The entire stadium was watching this. All 87,000 people. Cameras from the broadcast crew had abandoned the game entirely and were trained on this spot. And in that silence, the kind of silence that only descends on a packed stadium when something genuinely extraordinary is happening, Ronaldinho reached down and began unlacing his boots. He took them off one at a time and held them in front of Maria. "These are for you," he said. "I want you to keep them, and every time you look at them, I want you to remember that your husband took care of the grass that I learned to be happy on. These boots are just leather and laces, but the field we play on, that field is love. That field is 41 years of someone showing up before sunrise so that the rest of us could have somewhere beautiful to play." Maria's hands trembled as she reached out and took the boots from him. "I cannot accept these," she said. "They are worth too much. They are worth a great deal less than 41 years of caring about something," he told her. Then he took off his jersey, number 10, his name across the shoulders, soaked through with the first 78 minutes of a professional soccer match, and handed it to Carls. "For your grandmother," he said, "so she never forgets tonight." Carls was crying. Maria was crying. Several of the Barcelona players watching from midfield had their hands pressed to their faces. Even 2 or 3 of the Sevilla players, rivals, opponents, men who had come to this stadium to beat him, were standing with their heads bowed. The referee approached. "Ronaldinho," he said, "you have to go back to the field. I cannot hold the game indefinitely." Ronaldinho stood, turned, and looked back at the field. A kit man ran toward him with a replacement jersey. He pulled it on while walking, but he kept going toward the center circle without his boots. When the referee caught up to him, he said, "Give me 3 minutes, just 3 minutes." The referee looked at the bench. He looked at Maria holding those boots against her chest. He looked at 87,000 people standing in the stands, not making a sound. He put his whistle back in his pocket. 3 minutes, the referee said. That is all. What happened in those 3 minutes has been described, debated, and replayed more times than almost any moment in the history of the sport. Ronaldinho received the ball at the top of the penalty area, barefoot on the grass, the same grass Josep Martinez had cut and watered and measured and cared for through 41 years of early mornings and quiet work and zero recognition. And in that moment, Ronaldinho understood something he had always known, but never quite felt with this much clarity. He understood why the field was magic. It was not because of the goals scored on it. It was not because of the trophies won on it. It was because of the people who cared for it. The invisible ones, the unnamed ones, the ones who showed up before the lights came on and stayed after the crowds went home. He struck the ball with his bare right foot. It curved impossibly, bending away from the goalkeeper's dive, and kissing the inside of the post and settling into the net. The Camp Nou erupted, but Ronaldinho did not run toward his teammates. He did not raise his arms. He turned and ran directly back to the bench. He dropped to his knees in front of Maria and said, "That goal was for Josep." Maria could not speak. Tears ran down her face in steady, quiet streams. Carls held his grandmother's shoulders. The doctors checked her pulse and nodded. She was stable, her heart holding steady through a moment that might have stopped a younger person's entirely. And then, something remarkable happened that no one had planned or coordinated. The captain of Sevilla, the visiting team, the opponent, the men who had come to Barcelona to win, walked over to the bench. He removed his captain's armband. He crouched beside Maria and placed it in her lap. "Today," he said, "we are all from Barcelona." The applause that followed was unlike anything that had been heard in that stadium in years. It began in one corner and spread in a wave, section by section, until 87,000 people were on their feet. Not for a goal, not for a championship, for a woman they had never met, holding a pair of worn-out cleats, who had spent 3 months coming to an empty stadium every morning just to feel close to the man she loved. The match resumed. Ronaldinho put on new boots. The rules required it, and Barcelona won the game 1-0. But no one who was there that night talked about the score afterward. They talked about Maria. They talked about Josep. They talked about 3 minutes of barefoot soccer and what it meant when someone famous enough to not have to care about anything still chose to care about everything. 3 weeks later, Maria Puig de Martinez passed away at home. Her heart, which the doctors had warned her about for months, finally gave out. But she died at peace. She died with Ronaldinho's boots resting on the bedside table beside her. She died with the number 10 jersey hanging on the wall where she could see it from her pillow. She died knowing that her husband's name and his work had been seen and honored and remembered. Carls called Ronaldinho with the news. Ronaldinho wept. The following day, he contacted the club president and did not ask, insisted that the groundskeeping area of the Camp Nou be renamed after Josep Martinez. The president agreed without argument. At Maria's funeral, Ronaldinho arrived alone. No security, no cameras, no announcement. He sat in the back row of the church and stayed until every other person had left. Then he walked to the casket and stood quietly for a long time before leaving a single handwritten note that no one else was meant to read. Years passed. Ronaldinho left Barcelona. He played for other clubs, won other trophies, became a legend enshrined in every possible record book and highlight reel the sport has ever produced. But when people asked him, journalists, fans, former teammates, interviewers in a dozen different languages and countries, what his greatest memory was from his time at the Camp Nou, he never gave the answer anyone expected. He did not mention the Champions League final in Paris. He did not mention the Ballon d'Or. He did not mention any specific goal or any specific match against any specific rival. He talked about Maria. He talked about Josep. He talked about 3 minutes of barefoot soccer on a field that one man had spent a lifetime keeping alive. Today, Carles is in his 50s. He works as a groundskeeper at the Camp Nou, the same job his grandfather held for 41 years. In his small office near the field level entrance, there is a glass display case mounted on the wall. Inside it, arranged carefully, are 3 objects: a pair of cleats, an old yellow ticket stub from 1974, and a number 10 jersey signed with a short message written in permanent marker across the back panel. Every morning before he goes out to tend the grass, Carls looks at that case. He thinks about his grandfather arriving before sunrise. He thinks about his grandmother singing the club anthem with her eyes closed in an empty stadium. He thinks about a soccer player who stopped a match, took off his shoes, and handed them to a grieving widow. Not for the cameras, not for the headlines, but because it was the only thing that made any sense to do in that moment. And then he picks up his tools and goes out to take care of the field. Because the game does not happen without the grass. The grass does not happen without the people who love it. And sometimes the greatest thing a famous person can do is stop everything they are doing and make sure the invisible people know they have been seen. That is what Ronaldinho did that night. That is why it still matters. Some stories never make it into the highlight reels. They never trend on social media or get replayed on sports channels at the end of the year. But they are the ones that stay with you, the ones that remind you what all of this is actually for. Josep Martinez tended the grass of the Camp Nou for 41 years and never heard his name announced over a loudspeaker. But on one November night, 87,000 people gave him a standing ovation. Maria got to feel that. And because of her, so did all of us. If this story moved you, hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss one of these. Every week, we bring you the moments from the world of sports that the cameras almost missed. The real ones, the human ones, the ones that remind you why we watch in the first place. Share this with someone who needs to remember that the best things in sports have nothing to do with the final score. Leave a comment below and tell us, what does this story mean to you?